first time I ever went to New Orleans, I was just passing through on a road trip across the country. New Orleans wasn't far from my planned route, so I figured it'd be a good spot to stop for the night and experience some of its famous atmosphere. However, since I had more pressing matters to attend to on my journey, I didn't plan on getting too involved in the city's festivities. I also found out that the most of the cool spots were strictly 21 and over, and since I was only 20 at the time, my options were pretty limited. Girlfriend was traveling with me, and when we got there, we spent the day exploring what we could without needing to show ID. We walked around the French Quarter, admired the architecture, and enjoyed some street performance. We even grabbed some beignets and coffee at Café du Monde, which was a highlight of the day. As the evening rolled around, we wandered down Bourbon Street, soaking in the lively vibe from distance. But since we couldn't enter most of the bars or clubs, we eventually decided to head back to our hotel for the night. Fortunately, since I wasn't 21, finding a decent place to stay had been a challenge. The only place I could book was a dingy rundown motel just outside the French Quarter. The motel was sketchy, to say the least, with a liquor store on the side and a row of abandoned buildings on the other. The moment we arrived, I knew we were in for an uncomfortable night. Our room was on the ground floor, and as we unloaded our bags, a group of guys hanging out in the parking lot stared us down, making us feel incredibly uneasy. When we finally got inside the room, it was clearer that the door had been forced open multiple times before. There were scratches and dents all around the lock. We didn't waste any time. We shoved the chair under the doorknob, double-checked the deadbolt, tried to make ourselves comfortable. After a while, we started watching TV, hoping to distract ourselves from the unsettling environment. But soon, the night took a turn for the worse. The room above us became disturbingly noisy, loud footsteps, shouting, and what sounded like furniture being thrown around. At first, we tried to ignore it, thinking it was just some rowdy guests, but as the noises escalated, it became clearer that something was very wrong. We heard a man's voice yelling, followed by a woman's scream. It didn't sound like she was angry. It sounded like she was in serious trouble. I was about to call the front desk when we heard a loud crash, like someone had been slammed into the floor. Then came the sound of a struggle, more shouting, and the woman screaming for help. My heart was pounding, but I knew I had to do something. I quickly dialed 911 and reported the situation, giving them the motel's address. The police arrived within minutes, and we could hear them shouting comments as they surrounded the building. My girlfriend and I stayed huddled in the bathroom, praying that the situation wouldn't escalate further. After what felt like eternity, things finally calmed down. I later found out from the officers that the man above us had attacked the woman. The man in the room above us had attacked the woman during an argument. He tried to flee when the police arrived, but didn't make it far before they caught him. The night in New Orleans was a stark reminder that not all adventures go unplanned. While I regret not calling the police sooner, I'm grateful that the woman was rescued before things got even worse. The city may be known for its vibrant nightlife, but that night we saw a much darker side of it. And even though It was just one stop on our road trip. It's a night that I had always dreamed of returning to the Scottish Highlands as an adult, exploring on my own terms. So, I rented a car in London and began my journey to the north, aiming for a small town called Mallaig. It was supposed to be the start of an epic backpacking adventure across Europe, but things didn't go as planned. By the first evening, I was deep in the highlands, surrounded by stunning landscapes. As the sun began to set, I decided to find a place to stay rather than drive in the dark. I pulled over at a quaint little inn on the side of the road, expecting a cozy, welcoming experience similar to what I'd encountered before in Scotland. The inn had a charming, homey feel with a small pub on the ground floor serving homemade food. The inn had a charming, homey feel with a small pub on the ground floor serving homemade food and local brews. After settling in, I headed to the bar for dinner. The few locals there quickly identified me as a tourist. And recommended some must-see spots along my route, along with their favorite ales and dishes. The innkeeper, a middle-aged woman with a warm demeanor, greeted me and took my payment for the room. After a hearty beef stew and a pint of beer, I found myself the last guest still awake. The innkeeper noticed that I was struggling to sleep despite the late hour, suggested a few more drinks to help me unwind. She offered me shots of a Scottish liquor I'd never seen before. Not wanting to be rude, I accepted, even though I had expected more beer. Over the next hour, I downed 3 or 4 shots along with a glass of water to chase them. Oddly, the innkeeper didn't drink with me, which made me feel like I was the only one enjoying the night. When I finally decided to call it a night, I stood up and realized something was terribly wrong. I was far drunker than I should have been, and I felt more than just drunk. I was completely disoriented. I tried to speak, but the words came out of nonsense. The cook, a burly man who had been cleaning up in the kitchen, suddenly appeared next to the innkeeper. He blocked my path as I tried to leave, forcing me back towards the center of the building. I was headed to the staircase, one side leading up to the rooms, the other downside to the cellar. As I stood there, struggling to make sense of what was happening, I felt a hard shove, sending me tumbling down the stairs. The next things I remember, caught in the back of my seat of the car, parked far from the inn. My head troubled, and a sharp pain shot through my abdomen, pulled a stitch wound on my side. My heart sank as I realized I had been drugged, attacked, and my kidney had been stolen. My belongings, including my wallet and phone, were gone. Disoriented and terrified, I managed to drive to the nearest road and flagged down to help. The police were sympathetic, but had little to go on. My memories of that night were fuzzy at best, likely due to the combination of alcohol, sedatives, and the concussion from the fall. To this day, those who did this to me have never been caught, and I left Scotland much sooner than planned, scarred both physically and mentally. It was a harsh lesson to the dangers that can lurk even in the most beautiful places.